fiancé harvested my kidney and disappeared without a trace or without a word, and my life has never been the same ever again. It has been over 6 years now, and inasmuch as my family and I tried to trace him, we have been unsuccessful. Just like that, he vanished like a mirage, just when I thought I had my life figured out and things were going perfectly for me. I met Romeo through my auntie's husband. My auntie's husband had put out one of his cars for sale, and Romeo wanted to buy that particular car. He requested to do a thorough checks as well as requesting to know my uncle's office as well as where he lived, so that if there was any problem with the legality of the car, he could easily trace him. So it was through one of such meetings with my uncle in his house that I met Romeo. I was living with my uncle and he was my legal guardian, so I discussed almost everything concerning my life with him. So when Romeo expressed interest in me, I told my uncle about it, and he asked me to be patient so that he could also do a thorough background check-up on Romeo, which I agreed. My uncle later invited Romeo to his house and had a thorough discussion with him about his intentions towards me. And when my uncle was satisfied with his background checks, he gave me the permission to date him. Romeo was into real estate and also into farming. He was a successful young man and he was doing quite well for himself. Just a few months into the relationship, he came to ask permission from my uncle to ask for my hand in marriage. But my uncle told him to wait for a while since he had to discuss this with my mother and other family members, which he agreed. So, while he was waiting for the response from my uncle to properly come over and perform the necessary rite towards the marriage, if they eventually agree, he came to ask permission from my uncle so that he could take me to Zanzibar for a romantic vacation. In fact, the trip to Zanzibar was absolutely memorable because Zanzibar is one of my all-time favorite holiday destinations on planet Earth. So I was so happy to have seen this beautiful and amazing and remarkable piece of God's creation and man's architecture. Then 3 months later, he flew me to Kenya for another amazing holiday treat because of how I have always told him how much I would love to see the safari and other beautiful places in Kenya. Then when we returned from Kenya, my uncle had finally given him the go-ahead to come over to perform the necessary marriage rites. So he later proposed, which I agreed. 2 months after the proposal, he told me that he was planning to visit Turkey because he had wanted to start importing tiles and other building materials from Turkey since it was a good business venture. He later asked me if I'd like to travel with him to Turkey so that I could even shop for my wedding dress and any other thing that I might need for our wedding. So I agreed to travel with him to Turkey. When we got to Turkey, we lodged in a very beautiful hotel. Then the following day, we went together to different shops and factories to look at different tiles and other building materials, which he promised to come back and make orders. Then on the third day, he asked me to accompany him to the hospital to run a thorough check on his body since we were in Turkey, and we all know that Turkey is one of the best countries with modern equipment in the health center. But before we left for the hospital, he asked me if I was also interested in running a thorough check on my entire body since he would like us to start a family right after getting married. So I told him that I wouldn't mind running some checks on my body just to make sure that I was healthy and all my organs were working perfectly. When we got to the hospital, he decided that the doctor should run my checkups first and he would do his after I was done with mine. I was given a hospital outfit to change into, so I went to remove all my clothes and wore the hospital outfit that I was given by one of the nurses. And after changing, I went to lie down on one of the hospital beds that one of the nurses asked me to lie down on. And that was the last thing that I ever remembered. But when I woke up, I was in a different room with drips and other tubes on my body. I tried to get up, but one of the nurses in the room asked me not to get up since the wounds were still fresh. A wound? I asked myself. Which wound was she talking about? At this point, I realized that the nurse looked surprised when I asked her that question. Then later on, the surprise on her face suddenly turned into a fake smile when she realized that I didn't know what was happening around me. She then told me not to worry because the doctors will soon come and check on me and finally explain everything to me. Then she left the room. When she left, I tried to get up, but I realized that I was in so much pain, so I decided to lie down on the bed. Then not long after, two doctors entered the room and they were full of smile and they were also really nice. Then I quickly asked them what was going on and where my fiancé Romeo was. Then one of them told me to calm down. Then one of the doctors gave me a piece of paper, and when I read it, I was in a total shock. So on this paper, my name was boldly written on it and my signature agreeing to have one of my kidneys removed in return for a huge amount of money. And that money had already been transferred into an account for me. And when I checked the account that the money had been transferred into, it was certainly not in my name, but the name was Eric Newton. I asked myself, who is Eric Newton and who ordered to have one of my kidneys removed without my consent? Then one of the doctors told me that the gentleman that I came to the hospital with was the mastermind of having one of my kidneys removed, and they thought I was aware of the whole process, and they also thought that I had actually agreed to have the surgery done. I tried to call Romeo, but his phone was off. I was later told that he had brought my luggage and they showed me where my luggage was kept. I later called the hotel where we lodged to ask for Romeo with the help of one of the nurses, but I was told that he had checked out and he was no longer lodging in that hotel. At this moment, the emotional and psychological pain that I felt was nothing compared to the physical pain that I felt. How can the man that I loved and was engaged to be married to do this to me? What did I do to deserve this? Then one of the nurses, after realizing that I was completely deceived into having one of my kidneys removed, was so supportive and very kind to me. She came to check on me every day just to make sure that I was okay until I was finally discharged from the hospital and I flew back to my country finally. When I got home and I narrated my ordeal to my family, they were in total shock, especially my uncle. We later went to where Romeo was living, but he was gone. His apartment was completely empty. And when we went to his farm, it turned out that it wasn't even his real farm. And so, all what he said it was nothing but just a mirage and lies. It was all well planned, and I was probably one of his many victims. He was completely fake, a criminal, and a fraudster. We came to a conclusion that perhaps he only disguised himself as a responsible man, luring people and their families into thinking that he was a good person so that he could travel with them and have their kidneys or any other organs harvested for his selfish gain. And as to how many people fell as his victim, we cannot really tell. What if he had killed me? Or what if he had two of my kidneys removed? How would I have lived or survived? And we are very sure that since he's a criminal, Romeo might not even be his real name, but one of the many names that he might be using out there. So this story is to create awareness to everybody out there to be very careful and be very vigilant, because the international kidney market for business is booming. So many people on a daily basis are sending innocent people to hospitals for their kidneys and other organs to be harvested for their selfish gains. So let us all be very careful and be watchful for people like Romeo, or wicked people like Romeo. Wow, guys, I had chills all over my body while reading the story. How can people be so wicked to the point of pretending to be prospective spouses so that they could end up harvesting other people's kidneys and other people's organs? Guys, please kindly share this story so that it can reach as many people as possible to create the awareness about how wicked or such wickedness out there. Kindly share your thoughts and your opinions on the story as well. And please do well to watch my other videos as well. Thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification for more videos. I'll see you in the next story. It's bye.